This podcast is brought to you by Power Retail and was recorded at the Retail Global Gold Coast Conference 2019.
Well, g'day, it's Grant Arnott here from Power Retail, and I'm really excited to be sitting with Jane Kay, the founder of Bird's Nest. Jane, how long's it been, the Bird's Nest journey?
Oh, it's been a while, Grant. So I would say 10 years online we've been, and before that I sort of had my first experience in retail in bricks and mortar, so 4 years before we launched online, so 14 years, yeah. 14
years, I know you've won many awards and a real pioneer, but a much loved figure in the online retail space. I was lucky, we're at Retail Global as we're doing this podcast in the Gold Coast, and got to see you speak and present an awesome keynote a couple of years ago, which was quite raw and personal. It talked about the journey you'd had, but also I guess some of the challenges you'd had, also emotionally, leading a big team of people in a very high stakes competitive business, and what that did to you emotionally and how you dealt with that, and also how I guess you changed the business and focused on mindfulness. And love to hear you talk us through that period in your life and how it's played out since.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think I often say I'm the accidental leader of 150 people or souls, and it feels like a big responsibility sometimes, or all the time actually. And there were certainly parts of that journey where I had to really take stock and question myself about whether I was the right leader for these people. There were times, and I think any entrepreneur can relate to it, where you're so in love with your business, you're so in flow, and then at other times it can be really stressful and you feel the responsibility and sleepless nights, waking up, worrying about things. And for me, often it's the people things more than anything else, more than anything financial, that really sort of get to me.
Love of your staff and feeling responsible for them.
Absolutely, and I think I've been always really passionate about having a great culture and a great place to work, because I feel that is what is at the base of a great customer experience as well. Because if people are there and just wanting to be part of something and create great experiences, then you do anything that touches that. So when you want to really have happy people, as soon as anyone's not happy, it's and so I think for myself, getting to a point where I really questioned whether I was the right leader or not. At that time, I got a coach and someone to come in and really say, well, the best way to find out how you're leading this team is to ask them, and I think when you're a founder, often at the top of a business, it's just finding that bravery and vulnerability to say, okay guys, because who else are you going to put in at this place? Critique me, tell me what I can do better. And so they did, and we facilitated this very raw, what should Jane continue to do, what should she stop doing, and what should she start doing. And of course, when you have a feedback session like that, all you can hear is, what should she stop doing? And one of those things was, I really needed to, I had this thing called a panic button that they described, and I recognised it when they described it, and while I could get over an issue quite quickly, what I left in potentially my wake. So I remember Googling, how do I calm down at that time, and I remember thinking, it was New Year's Day actually. I usually set some sort of intention for the next year at that time, and all this stuff. This is 5 years ago, I'd say, 4 or 5 years ago, and all this stuff on mindfulness and meditation and came up, and I was like, oh no, meditation, that's for the hippies. I didn't have time for that. But it was calling me, and I went to this mindful leadership retreat, and I guess the rest is history. Came back a total evangelist, and thought, why aren't we taught this stuff about our brains, earlier in life? There's this sort of ancient wisdom Buddhism stuff, but then there's just the science and of the way our brains operate, what happens to us when we're stressed, the fact that we actually, stress and being a rational and compassionate human being are actually at odds with each other. And so it made so much sense to me in terms of, my own behaviour and how I could actually be, really quite a good leader, they were telling me, when I was, in flow and calm and focused. But when I was stressed, everything went out the window. And I think for little humans, that's true of all of us. So really, bringing that into the business has been incredibly powerful on so many levels, and I guess it's hard to go into in the time that we would necessarily have, but it's a learning about it, and you can intellectualise about these things, but it is ultimately a practice, and so bringing that practice into the business was the start.
And so what's changed then at Birds Nest since this, I guess, epiphany of interest in mindfulness? Like from a day-to-day perspective, what did the team do differently today than what they were doing 5 years ago?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that we've introduced is just the practice of mindfulness and meditation. So we have a dedicated meditation room, and at 10:30 every day the bells go, and anyone who'd like to join goes and sits in the room, actually just lies. I mean, people who arrive and see it are like, wow, everyone's very comfortable with each other. They just literally walk into this room and just sort of flop back. Everyone's very, so they might be in a rainforest that day, or maybe they're a mountain and all the weather is happening around them, or basically takes them into a place that stills them, and they concentrate on their breathing and just all these physiological things that basically bring them into the parasympathetic, which means when they walk out of that room, the next stress that happens hits them in a different state, and so that has, even though not everyone goes and some people tap in and out of it, it does have a real ripple effect across the business. And I think just the education as well, you see results at an individual level, and we also can tap into our mindfulness teacher as a counsellor, and people do that as well, and mental health is such a huge it's so good that we're so much more aware of how much mental health plays on our performance as humans, not only in our personal lives but also in our professional lives. So we see it at an individual level, the transformations, and then at a team level we see the creativity, the camaraderie. At a business level we've seen in terms of performance over that time and how the business has performed. But then I think what's really exciting for me is what I see is at a consciousness level. We've built this brand, we've got this great community of people, and now we're actually starting to think about, well, what is our role in the world, and how do we use this great thing that we've built to do good? So I think the types of programs that have been even put in place, from people becoming much more passionate about our recycling program to changing our packaging to really getting more involved in our suppliers and the stories of the people behind the people that make our clothes, to wanting to get more involved in the community and volunteer programs. And so it's really, I think it's been quite profound, the kind of impacts, because we always had this great intention, but you have to then really, through mindfulness you become a bit more aware of, am I actually living that or not?
And has it given you personally a lot more peace as a leader?
A lot more peace, yes. Yes, and I have, I guess, I think, as a lot more tools, you're still going to have those moments of stress and disillusionment, and, but an understanding that these emotions actually, they come, they're a visitor, you have things that you can use to deal with them and process them, and then you can, that state's not going to stay forever and you can move on. So there's just a different perspective and more observation of yourself in terms of what's going on. Oh, this is interesting, here you go. You can feel that stress, that knot in your stomach. So it's almost like another dialogue you're able to have with yourself as you become sort of more aware of the emotions that we naturally go through as humans. You never, it's a lifelong learning process, certainly nowhere near mastering it, but just so excited to have been opened up to, a greater sense of calm and peace in amongst the chaos.
Well, it sounds like, that period has been a real game changer for Birds Nest. I mean, outwardly, it just looks like business as usual, Birds Nest going strong, but it sounds like, at the core there were some challenges to overcome, and mindfulness has been a key part of, I guess, not so much a transformation of the business, but a transformation of the mindset, maybe.
People within, absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations. I mean, it's really exciting. I'm a big fan, as you know, and love seeing all the things that you're doing. We could spend many podcasts talking just about the customer service and the innovation within Birds Nest. We'll save that for another time. But thanks, Jane, for joining us for 10 minutes today, and hope everyone gets a lot of lessons out of that, particularly those retail entrepreneurs who maybe doing it tough and being stressed at the moment, investigate mindfulness. I know I should look into it and
I'm happy to give tips
advantage.
anytime.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Grant. All right. Cheers.